Welcome back to another episode of Believe in the Broncos on the Believe Network, sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook, your number one place for sports betting. I'm Patrick Chiotti. That's Bree Maestas. Welcome back to the show. Bree, we're back from London. Fish and chips were great. Broncos offense was not. That's the only way that I can put it. First and foremost, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Off a win, although it was ugly, it still counts as one. And I think that's all that matters at this point as we head into week 7.
Broncos win an ugly one, 13-11 in London, coming back to face the New York Giants. And then we have the Dallas Cowboys next week at home. A couple of big games, but this next one is an even bigger one. Demaryius Thomas will be formally inducted into the Broncos Ring of Fame. Monumentous game, monumentous player for the Denver Broncos. One of my favorite Broncos of all time. I think a lot of people would say the same. So many core memories involved with 88. And I just know that he's always looking down with a smile on his face and a Broncos jersey on. So this is going to be a massive game. It's going to be an emotional one for a lot of the Broncos players, especially Courtland Sutton, who is kind of taken under DT's wing towards the end of his Broncos tenure. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to an offensive bounce back as well, Bree. Let's just quickly recap the Jets game. What did you like out of from the Broncos in this performance, and what didn't you like?
I think this is going to be very skewed towards the defense simply because the offense is going to have to start trickling into a different mindset. And I hope that's coming as we approach the midseason. But the defense in general, I think, is what you really have to stand by. The positive and what I'd like to see improve, honestly. Holding the Jets to negative 10 passing yards is just a fun stat in general because now you've got history books in your favor, and I think it's just going to start to amp up more. You sack a quarterback 9 times, you start approaching NFL records. I mean, that game alone propels the Broncos to the top of the NFL standings when it comes to leading the sack charge. I think the Packers are next up at 20. So I love what we're seeing out of this defense, and I think it's going to continue to get better, right? There's still a looming return of Dre Greenlaw that's going to add some more of that hard-hitting action that we want to see out of that. But what I'm generally really amped up about is that this is a kind of defense that leads you to winning some really important games. And on the same hand, if you want to flip the script and say what you want to see more of, I think general, the emphasis on turnovers needs to be higher. I think once they get that under their belt, this entire league changes because you've been put on notice already with the duo of Benito and Cooper. You see that they're talented in ways that you're not really able to surmise in a 30-minute podcast, right? Like there's whole episodes that need to be dedicated to what this defense is doing, also along the line. And the secondary is able to kind of catch their breath a little bit because they're not being aired out in the way that you'd see against, I guess, more appropriate offenses. I don't think the Jets is the one that you need to use this as the pillar or the measuring stick when it comes to what this defense is doing. But what I'm hoping to is to see that turnover differential really start to eke itself up. And then I think you're going to see an entirely different identity to this defense. And I was having a conversation about, this defense is going to be one that we're going to reflect upon as being one of the record book ones for this Denver Broncos team. And I think you get a little bit of a shocked reaction there because you start trying to quantify who takes the emblem from the 2015 defense, right? And I want to shy away from that because I don't think you can necessarily compare the two and then put the players in the position to say they're 1-1. Like, you cannot replicate an Aqib Talib. You cannot replicate a Chris Harris Jr. But I think what you can do is you can start pointing to this really evolution and change of this defense and what we've seen. And they're putting the right pieces in place. And you're seeing breakthrough players. You're seeing Zach Allen continuously improve upon. He maybe doesn't have the stats that give you that kind of nature. So what I want is to start seeing that reflect in the game. I think the Giants game is a perfect one to do so because you will will see a little bit more out of Jaxson Dart and Cam Scatterbo that you didn't see out of Justin Fields and what they were able to replicate through Breece Hall. So in the long and the short of it, the defense needs to be a little bit better and close out. But I think it's not because they're not supremely talented.
Well, it should also be noted that they got absolutely boned out of a turnover.
Yeah.
They that was one of the most ridiculous calls or overturns, I should say.
That's a football move.
I mean, listen, you catch the ball and then you have it in both hands and you're trying to keep it away from the defender. That looks like possession to me. But whatever. We move on. No, I think you're right there. Like they're so close to being a truly dominant defense, and while they do lead the league in sacks by a margin of 10, with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks being tied for second there. I mean, they lead the league in sack percentage. They obviously are one of the top teams. They're not the leading team in quarterback pressures, but they're certainly up there in terms of pressure percentage. The biggest area where they're lacking is that turnover margin. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. They're one of the lowest teams in terms of turnover percentage, but they're creating pressure. They're getting sacks. But then they're also giving up a ton of passing yards a game. So, you can't have it all, right? I do think they're so close to being that complete product. And you're right, it is tough to compare because we're always going to compare to that Super Bowl winning team. But I don't think that they're quite built the same way. And that mentality is still yet to be discovered, I think. Maybe if Dre Greenlaw comes back and it kind of morphs this defense into something else, maybe we do see shades of that 2015 team. But it's definitely not it's not one that we can really equate to each other. Like I see so much, Nick Bonito is just like Von Miller. Well, yeah, but like also, if we're talking about 2015, like who's our Malik Jackson? Who's our Derek Wolfe? Who's our we don't have a DeMarcus Ware on this team. Like Jonathan Cooper is great. He's not DeMarcus Ware, right? Who is that Shaq Barrett? I would say Jonathan Cooper is maybe more like Shaq Barrett than he is DeMarcus Ware. So
I think that's fair. And a lot of that comes through wins, right? Like that comes through the finality of the season. And I think that you also see that grow through dominance in multiple seasons. So I think when I conflate the two, it needs to be in this expectation realm, maybe, and seeing it grow, because I don't want to discount what Jonathan Cooper brings to this team simply because he gets better and better every single year,
Yeah. I mean, 7th round pick. He's got the most sacks. From a 7th round pick? I just saw this. It's like most sacks by a 7th round pick in their first 4 seasons of all time, since the draft went to 7 rounds. So that's pretty impressive. Great ROI for the Broncos there, but they eke out a win. Real quick, I just want to touch on the Broncos offense. This was probably the worst play calling game, and I hate to be the guy that brings up the play calling because I feel like that's been such a big theme from media members. But this was the worst play calling game, in my opinion. I did not. Maybe Aaron Glenn just had Sean Payton's number. Maybe that comes from the experience being around him in the system and kind of understanding his tendencies. But this game had a lot of head scratchers for me. And I just think you also had the penalties. We talked about that last week. I could probably count 3 big throws that Bo Nix made to Sutton, Ingram, and maybe Franklin that got negated because of penalties. And that's frustrating in its own right. But then we have just really confusing play sequences and really confusing play calls during the third quarter. You only throw the ball 3 times. Bo Nix was in a rhythm in the first half. He was 15 for 20 to start in the first half. And then you only throw the ball 3 times. Man, it was just a really confusing offensive day. So hopefully,
Well,
well,
where's it's symptomatic, right,
yeah,
Patrick? It's coming from something, and whether it's a trusting of your quarterback or a miscommunicate, like I need to know if it's coming from a place of not trusting Bo Nix, or if Bo Nix is not trusting himself, or if it's a little bit in between of Bo Nix wants to do something outside of what's being asked of him. And I've yet to really determine what that is, but we see Bo struggle a little bit with a couple of foundational things. Like his pocket presence continues to be a little bit questionable. You see the way in which he reads where he'd like to throw the ball versus what I think Sean Payton wants him to do. And then you've got all of Broncos country up in arms about the idea that they're not really opening him up enough. And so I think I think we need to go back to the foundational piece of it and utilize what's working a little bit more. And I think that's where Sean Payton really tries to outsmart everybody. I don't know if Aaron Glenn necessarily had anybody's number, but what Sean Payton needs to do, and I think he's going to need to figure that out. I just don't know if he can rein himself in. So at what point are we going to say Evan Ingram isn't being used as the potential that he needs to be done? And why isn't that being elevated? I don't think it's necessarily Bo Nix isn't being allowed to play his game. I think that there's certain things that work, and it's almost like an a la, I'm not even comparing the two, but you got a Pete Carroll getting the most out of a Russell Wilson. Why aren't we getting the most out of Bo Nix?
yeah. Well, I mean, this was the game where Ingram got the most involved, and I think, and that was like that was big because you can start to see this offense kind of finding some sort of rhythm. The penalties are just killing them repeatedly, just absolutely shattering any and all confidence. The safety that they had, and I mean, Bo makes a good back shoulder throw. They call OPI, which in what world is that OPI? The receiver is trying to work back to the ball and he's getting pulled. That's not OPI. But I digress. Like, you're backed up into this situation. You're asking him to make throws and he's making the throws. And then you get a penalty. You get like, it's just like, hey, good job. You made this throw. Fudge. There's a yellow flag. Like, it sucked. They had a big. I can't remember what it was. It was either third and 8 or third and 11 or something. And Bo throws a dot to Cortland Sutton for a first down, holding. It's like, geez, like, yeah, we're asking so much of this guy, and he's executing to an extent. But I do think that there are times where Sean just kind of gets in his own way as a play caller. Been there, done that, right? Gotta just get out of your way, and let your quarterback operate the offense the way that it should be operated. I felt really confident about Evan Ingram after this game. I really did, because he was working. He was working the choice routes really well, but you could see Bo starting to trust him a little bit more. He was thrown in the tight windows for him, asking him to make really tough catches, and he was delivering. So going forward, I think we're going to see Ingram get more and more involved in the passing game. But it's just about the offensive consistency. They weren't running the ball very well against the Jets. That was very evident. But they just have to get back to some sort of consistency. Throwing the ball 20 times and a half, if he was 15 for 20, great. I still don't want to see that number at 20. I think that number should be around 14, 15 for the first half. Like, please stop throwing the ball so much early in games, because then if you're down, you got to throw the ball to come back. It's not a recipe for success. So that's where I'm going to leave it for the Jets game. And I'm going to leave that ugly score in London because they left a ton of points on the board. Bree, let's get to the Giants. Giants coming in off kind of a little bit of a roller coaster with Jaxson Dart starting. You beat the Chargers and then you lose to the Saints. You win last week in a big way against the Eagles, like reigning Super Bowl champions. Is awesome. They get some extra rest. How are you feeling about this game? What are some of the big things that you're looking for the Broncos defense, Broncos offense? What are you looking for in this game?
Well, I asked this question elsewhere prior to today, but the idea of week 6 being a trap game, what is week 7? Because it's not a trap game. It's the game that you've been sort of looking forward to since last season for a whole set of reasons. This is the streak that the Broncos are looking to really close out strong before they host the Kansas City Chiefs. So this game really kind of starts that endeavor. And you already named the teams off, but it's one of those matchups where the circumstances have changed. We called it here on Believe in the Broncos that we didn't anticipate Russell Wilson starting for the Giants. So you got Jaxson Dart in there. Collapse and applause all around for the astuteness that we've shown here on this program. But what I am really interested in is this is the measuring stick from anticipation. The travel to London is already onerous in itself. Now you're coming back. You are on a shortened schedule in that frame. And then Sunday is going to be here before you know it. So your planning becomes a little bit different, and you can't overlook this game as you prepare for some of the ones down the list. Like, it's 1 week at a time. The Giants are a great measuring stick when it looks to their run defense isn't that great. So can you continuously utilize a J.K. Dobbins, get an R.J. Harvey involved more? What does your ground game look like at this point in the season? Because as your offense continues to click into place, you need to continue to take that pressure off of Bo Nix, and they've done a tremendous job of doing so. J.K. Dobbins has come in and absolutely made this his team. I'd like to see that continue to roll forward. I think some people want to see a little bit more of a running back by committee, but I think if it's working, it's working. He's leading the charge here, and you see him in the top 10 and top 5 range for rushing touchdowns and rushing yards per game and all of these important metrics that you're seeing it really move the sticks. And I'm hoping that the offense continues to really trickle through what they're able to do, but this is the team to do it against. The defense is already going to be feasting when it comes to a quarterback that likes to scramble. This defense does not show kindness to that strategy. And so I'm predicting a larger sack percentage here for the Broncos as they go against the Jaxson Dart. Plus, Cam Scadaboo is going to want to run directly through that defensive front of the Broncos, and I just don't see him finding a whole lot of success, right? So you don't have to worry too much about what your defense is doing. You can start to hone in your strengths of maybe some strip sacks are worked into all of that bullying you're doing at the front. But then the offense has the opportunity to lean into what they're doing well, which I think the run game is finally doing that. The reason it doesn't shine as brightly as maybe some other teams with a star running back is because they're still trying to feel out what their offensive strategy is. And it's getting Bo Nix some help there is what's going to carry them forward. So with this Giants game, good defensive showing is going to carry them far, but honestly, this is where the offense really gets to take off. I'd like to see J.K. Dobbins and Bo Nix run the ball and eat up the time of possession, because it's not going to be like an offensive shootout. You're not going to go 1-1 with the Jaxson Dart. Like, that's not what we're looking for here. That's the Cowboys game. That's what we'll talk about next week, right? But what we have right now is the opportunity for them to come home, get a win, and carry on towards that middle of the season.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that with the keys to the game. But yeah, you're right on track. Like, the Giants are the number 1 team in the league when it comes to running inside. And Jaxson Dart is like leading the NFL in quarterback design runs. So that's going to be something to definitely keep an eye on. Like, this team, they want to run the ball. They want to make that their offensive identity, especially with Scadaboo, who maybe I was a little critical. Maybe I was wrong.
No, it's warranted. Pat,
No.
don't do that. Don't walk you back.
Maybe I was wrong a little bit. He runs hard, man. Like, I knew he was gonna run hard, right? Like, he's gonna run hard, but I mean, he's gonna bring some energy, and that's kind of what this young offense would do if they had Malik Neighbors. Man, this is gonna be a fun team to watch. Like, next season, this is gonna be a really fun team. But they're still growing. They're still going through their growing pains. And then you have to face a juggernaut, right? The Eagles defense, they didn't have Jalen Carter. So, can we put a bunch of stock into that? But they came out and they came out swinging. So I fully expect them to do the same. Keys to this game, Bree, you said it. J.K. Dobbins has to get involved. So my first key, run the ball early. they need to establish themselves early and not let the New York offense get a rhythm. So long, extended drives, like we have to be able to run the ball. This defense is the seventh worst team in terms of run yards per game when on the road. They've allowed the fourth most explosive runs, so that's 10 runs of 10 or more yards on the road. But this offense has the fourth most explosive runs. That's 10 or more yards. Again, Broncos offense is the Broncos offense is fourth. The Giants are eighth in explosive runs. So there's going to be opportunities. This team just does not play well on the road. Seventh worst yards per game on the road. Seventh worst passing yards per game on the road. 13 worst points per game on the road. But this defense will create pressure. So sixth most quarterback pressures on the road. Fifth best time to throw on the road. So they're getting to the quarterback pretty quick, or forcing that ball out quick, I should say. So the Broncos offense has to get J.K. Dobbins going. Bo Nix has to be in complete control of this offense early in the game in order for them to win this game. Bree, that takes us to the second point. They need to take targeted shots in the passing game. What do you think with the injury to not only Ben Powers, who's on IR, they also announced Matt Pert will also Pert? I hate the Pert thing. Matt Pert. He's Matt Pert. Matt Pert is also put on injured reserve. Calvin Throckmorton has been elevated. So the question is it going to be Alex Palczewski or is it going to be Throckmorton at left guard? Could we see Luke Wattenberg slide over to left guard? We already kind of talked about that last week. But with that being an issue, and with a new guy being in there for the second straight week, we got to give Bo some easy throws early. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you can't take too much time there, especially if you don't want him to be squirrely. You already have a concern of when you have a protected pocket of Bo Nix having a little bit of a struggle. They're making some decisions, so I don't think losing your guards is necessarily the best. Back-to-back weeks is probably not the best thing to do, and it makes me a little bit heightened in the cautious territory because my confidence level was already tested. And you'll see me week after week come back on here and say I just don't know what it is after that spot. So as individuals continue to get injured, which we're just entering week 7, that's not something that's going to go away. But having 2 guards go on IR is definitely not where I wanted to be at this point in the season. It is interesting that they continuously are bringing in players to try out for the team. So you obviously have, I think Carson Barnhart was the most recent one that they were able to bring onto the practice squad, right? But he's not going to have the ability to just sort of slot himself in to the line and bring it back up to the standard in which it was. So now you're left scrambling. Although I will say Quinn Bailey getting that tryout here was welcomed because I think that's somebody who would be sorely missed in the Swiss Army knife that is the versatility of the offensive line. So keep an eye on that one because I still feel pretty good that that'll be a source or a resource moving forward. But I don't want to play around too much with the cutesiness of slotting Wattenberg over and putting Forsyth in at center because I don't think that that's what you want to do in this predicament. I think you want to keep the variability low, specifically because of how the line functions. Now, Pat, I'm not trying to say it's a terrible idea. It's just we don't know. And we don't know what we have at center. If Luke Wattenberg was the guy that we knew that we could trust and you could then just put Forsyth in there who hasn't, I don't think he has had a ton of variability when it comes to playing guard, but I could be mistaken. Either way, I don't like shifting around simply because you can. I think what you have to do is go next guy up, and Throckmorton seems like the relative play there. Now it does, like, why is Palcho not the decision there? Like it obviously isn't where they want it to be because they didn't make that more linear move. And I think going with Matt Parrott to start and then having to suffer through who's going to be the third guy up is where we're at just as a unit. But what it does is cause a ripple effect, and the Broncos need to find a way to limit that as much as possible, which plays into one of my keys of the game, which is penalties. So 6 for 37 maybe isn't the worst. You've cut it in half from what it was the week before, but it's still too many in monumental plays. So we're talking about the ripple effect in general of where your penalties happen. If they're on key downs and you've just completed a pass for 30 plus yards and you're having to come back because of what I would say a very simple and self-inflicted wound, then that's where your problems start coming by. You can limit them down to 3 penalties, but if those are for 30 yards, then you really are doing this to yourself. Now, you can't be the Kansas City Chiefs and have absolutely 0 penalties called against you, because that just really doesn't happen. But you do have to limit them in key opportunities and moments. And unfortunately, Parrott was struggling through some injuries very early on in that game, which I think then led and lend itself to those penalties really racking up. So I'm gonna say that the waters have yet to be temperature checked appropriately for where this line is actually going to be.
Yeah, it's penalties just need to be cleaned up. Like, I'm fine with, I'm fine with some. Like, you're never gonna have a perfect game. And I think that's a really big ask for a coach is, hey, we have to play a perfectly clean game. Well, anything can happen. A referee can make a wild decision here and there. Like, that's fine. But just in those key situations, like, we have to keep our heads, right? We have to play sound technique in key third down situations on special teams. We can't have false starts. We can't have, hey, Sean must have heard us, because I didn't hear a whole lot of illegal shift and illegal formation when the Broncos were on the offensive side of the ball. So hallelujah, we figured it out. We figured out how to line up right, guys. That's day one stuff. Let's go.
His head would have popped off, I think,
Oh,
if it
man.
happened again.
Gee whiz. Yeah, Bree, just limit the penalties. That 3 easy keys to the game. Bree, real quick, your prediction for this game.
I think that J.K. Dobbins is going to get more run. I think we're seeing a big game from him, including a rushing touchdown. I'd say go over for 100 yards. I think this is the right team to do it. I do also think that you'll see a little bit more involvement from R.J. Harvey, but I'm going to say run game takes off. It's convincing. We get a rushing touchdown out of it. Honestly, I could see Bo also getting some of that red zone rushing attempts from him, simply because it's a home game. You got all those vibes, and I just think that this is going to be the team to do it against. You get to try all your fun little bells and whistles.
Yeah. Score prediction?
I have to 1 minute while I confirm. I would like to stay as central as I've been with all, as accurate as possible. No, Broncos 27, Giants 16. I just wanted to make sure that I don't have to keep figuring out what I said where. This time we're going standard across the board. I do think that the Giants will squiggle away from scores. That's just where this Broncos team is right now, right? They're not necessarily holding people to that 10-point mark. Like, but we got to be realistic with where we are. And unfortunately, I do see that the seams could break a little bit, simply because the defense is going to be asked a lot from themselves and then moving forward. So I think this is the game where you could see something pop. And I just don't love the idea that this is going to be an extremely dominant affair. But I do feel like you've got all of the markings of a Broncos convincingly take the win here.
Yeah, I was crunching the numbers this morning, and I was looking over all of the available statistics that I have, and so I mathematically came up with the score of Broncos 32, Giants 14, and that's just based off of how well this Broncos defense is playing. Ironically enough, I looked at the Broncos special teams unit. Their expected points are currently sitting at negative 0.285. So they're taking away 3 points from themselves every week in the special teams game. Good job, Rizzy. You're doing fantastic. Keep it up. Bree, real quick, FanDuel fan bets over on FanDuel Sportsbook, the sponsor of this program. Currently, the Broncos are 7-point favorites at home. Over-under is set at 40.5. I clearly went with the over. What are you going with here? You said 27-16, so you're going with the over.
I'm going with the over.
Perfect. Broncos money line is currently at minus 340. But Bree, this was the one that I thought would be a good bet for people to add to their parlays or just throw some money on first to score New York Giants field goal. Now, I know my score prediction was 14, but this could be a very realistic first score bet opportunity. Plus 350 right now over on FanDuel Sportsbook. Quick, fun little bet for you to throw together. Make sure that you go over to FanDuel Sportsbook and put some money on the Broncos to win this game. That is going to do it for this episode of Believe in the Broncos. Bree, thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode to recap this game and to look forward to the Dallas Cowboys coming to Denver to face off against Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Bree, thank you so much. Any parting words for the listeners?
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos. Make sure you subscribe to this show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Make sure that you go to social media and follow Bree and myself at Bree Maestas 303, at Patrick Chiotti. Make sure you follow at Believe Network as well, and we will see you next time. Go Broncos.